relatively recently that Europe's own democratic landscape was dominated by clerical parties. Indeed, the Christian Democratic Union, CDU, continues to dominate Germany's democracy. Perhaps we should remind ourselves that the Quran makes it obligatory for leaders to consult their followers in the affairs of state. If democracy is about giving people a voice in matters of state, then the democracy is not alien to Islamic beliefs. The success of the Muslim Brotherhood's Freedom and Justice Party in Egypt or the Ennahda Party in Tunisia should not be determined by how they use religion in the affairs of state, but how successfully they address their economic issues and the desires of the Egyptian and Tunisian people to have a say in their future. We all have a duty to support them through this transition. But the Arab populations of North Africa must also help themselves. Race, geography, and history have conspired to make African Arabs a people with several heritages. They look north, south, and east for answers to their identity and interests. Where are their long-term geopolitical interests? Do they look eastwards towards Mesopotamia and the Middle East? Do they look north towards the Mediterranean and Europe? Do they look south across the Sahara to the rest of Africa? These are the critical decisions that they are going to have to make. The period of passive citizenship in Africa has hopefully come to an end, and governments have begun to adapt. Africa's young and enthusiastic Facebook generation has no time for non-performing leaders. The good news is that they have accepted the wisdom in expressing their impatience through the ballot box. In Ghana, for example, Afrobarometer polls have shown that 90% believe the leaders should be chosen through regular, open, and honest elections. The key challenge now is ensuring that democratic freedoms can develop opportunities and prosperity to Africa's long-suffering peoples. Whether you look north or south, east or west, the currency of Africa's challenges and opportunities is virtually the same. We are societies that present limited opportunities for the mass of our people. What Africa needs above all is value addition. And this starts with adding value to our human capital through an education system that provides every child with the skills to realize their full potential. Africa needs a confident, educated workforce to be able to compete effectively in the global economy. And that is why, for my part, I've made education the foundation of my vision to build a knowledge-based, industrialized economy in Ghana. Access to free, quality, basic, universal education is our key to effective participation in the new global economy. Our human potential has not yet been developed to match and capitalize on our continent's rich resources. Until we bridge this gap, we are squandering opportunities that could move us forever away from a culture of handouts to a culture of handouts and the creation of dignified and confident societies. What is the way forward? I suggest 6 steps. We need, firstly, to enhance transparency and accountability in our government structures and build strong institutions that can fight corruption. We need to expand rapidly our infrastructure on value for money basis. We need to invest heavily in our human capital. We need to transform stagnant, jobless economies built on the export of raw materials and unrefined goods to value-added economies that provide jobs to build strong middle-class societies. We need to make a commercial from traveling to Asia or Europe to buy finished products for our local markets, to acquiring knowledge, tools, and inputs that will enable us to produce our own finished products. And we need to create an environment to encourage talents that have gone overseas or have been nurtured overseas to be brought to bear to facilitate this transformation. Africa's leaders need to address the structure of our economies in order to meet the aspirations of Africans. The economies are essentially unchanged since the colonial days. For example, last year in 2011, Ghana became an oil-producing country and recorded the highest economic growth in the world as a result. Our total exports grew by 60.6% to 12.7 billion United States dollars, with gold, cocoa, and crude oil accounting for 76% of those exports. Compare that to 1927, when the most progressive leader of our colonial era, Gordon Guggisberg, left our shores, and 70% of our foreign receipts were derived from the export of three raw materials: cocoa, gold, and timber. Our dependence on raw materials has in fact increased in the past century. It is this dependence that feeds our dependence on foreign aid. We cannot be doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The social and economic vision for Africa that will ensure that Africa's growth will transform African lives is a simple one. We must add value. We must leverage our natural resources to industrialize and diversify our economies. For example, Ghana's petroleum find should not only lead us to build a petrochemical industry, but serve as a platform for an integrated industrialization campaign that links the exploitation of our iron and bauxite resources to the establishment of an integrated aluminum industry and to the significant expansion and modernization of our agricultural sector. About 30 years ago, some African nations, beginning with Ghana and Uganda, implemented liberal economic reforms to stop their economic decline. But in many cases, we opened our markets to global competition when beyond the extractive industries, we had nothing to compete with. So while the continent's share of global foreign direct investment projects has improved steadily over the past decade, much of this investment has reinforced the structural deficits of our economies. Africa is currently benefiting from growing investments from countries like China, India, and Brazil. We are inspired by the growing economic success of Brazil and India, two big democratic states from the developing world. We are all witnesses to how China's aggressive development of the market economy on the wheels of industrialization has lifted some 500 million people out of poverty over the past decade, 3 decades, creating the world's largest middle class in the process. Africa welcomes China's enthusiasm to assist with the needed credit to accelerate development on the continent. But since this is a relationship of mutual economic needs, I have raw materials, you have capital. It is the responsibility of our leaders to negotiate the best deal out there for their respective countries by leveraging these investments in the 3 critical areas: developing infrastructure, expanding manufacturing, and modernizing agriculture. Agriculture is a good example of the role the government can play in economic transformation. After less than 2 years of targeted government intervention, including the supply of fertilizer, pesticide, and improved seeds, post-conflict Sierra Leone managed to increase her rice production by 1/3, meeting and exceeding what was needed for local consumption. In this respect, deliberate efforts to promote